What's up, y'all? Welcome back to another episode of the Cheeky Midweeky, where we are making strength and conditioning not boring anymore. In today's episode, I'm joined by Coach Brandon Davis. Brandon is the same coach that Coach Cody Hughes talked about in Cody's episode, where Cody had a former employee that was able to get a full-time job because of the commitment and playing basketball with the women's basketball team when they were shorthanded and just showing passion and pride to the school that they were working at. This is that coach. So if you want to learn about how to be gritty and get jobs and work and network and be a competitive person, this is the episode for you. Also, we're going to talk about a performance circuit. We're going to talk about teaching RDLs to young athletes, and we're going to talk about competitive balance in high school athletics. Yeah, Brandon, like we said off air and had been talking before, biggest thing with this is I want to highlight you and your career because strength and conditioning coaches don't really know as much about the high school world. Sure, it's becoming more and more popular now, but it's not what's talked about in the classroom. So let's talk about you and your start. And we know that you're the assistant AD, head of performance. You're down in Florida. Let's talk about you and how you got your start.
Yeah, so started off, I was an intern and then assistant for Cody Hughes at Madison Academy. So I've
Okay.
always been in the high school sector. I knew from the get-go that's where I wanted to be. I kind of like the family balance of there's not the travel that you deal with, the college or professional sector, a little bit better hours, a lot more job security, that type thing. So I started off in high school since I knew that's where I wanted to go. From there, I became the head strength coach at a small school in Alabama called Priceville.
Okay.
So it's Priceville High School, about an hour outside of Huntsville. And from there, this job opened up. For those of you that know Ross Garner,
Yeah.
he used to hold this position, and then I actually took his place when he left and moved to Texas. So
Yeah.
this
And
is my
so
second
anybody
year here.
listening, Ross is the reason that like all of these
Yeah,
coaches, we started talking. And then Cody didn't say your name, but Cody talked about the fact that like were you the guy that was playing basketball with the
yeah,
girls like that? Holy cow. Dude, shout out to you for that. I'm going to link that episode
yeah,
down below, but talk about what that experience was like because bravo to you for not being like, that's below me. I don't do these things.
yeah. So like, first of all, their head basketball coach, her name's Krista. Krista actually serves as the assistant in the weight room as well.
Nice.
And so at Madison Academy, they had basically guys' days and girls' days. They were on a rotating block schedule. And so their A days, pretty much all of our guys or male athletes would train on those days. B days, all the female athletes would train with us. And so those B days, Krista basically just served as my assistant in the weight room. So I developed a good relationship with her there. They were in a very tough situation. They only had at that point 6 girls on the varsity basketball team. No freshmen, no JV team. So very small team. Obviously, you can't run 5-on-5 when you only have 6 girls on the team. And so they just needed help. So they couldn't always find enough high school dudes that were willing to come out and run practice squad with them. So I just volunteered. I told her I couldn't do it every single day. But yeah, whenever I was available, I tried to go out there. And it was a ton of fun. Helped me build a relationship with those girls because one of the first jobs Cody gave me was to head up the girls program and try to bring them up to par with where the guys were at.
Yeah.
And so it helped that a lot of those kind of leaders in the girls' classes were on the basketball team. So it helped that I built a relationship with them there. And then they were a lot more willing to get after the weight room because of that.
How did you, and I'm thinking the question that everybody's going to be asking is, what does the strength and conditioning, mainly the conditioning, look like when you have 6 people on a team for basketball where, you know, it's already hard enough, the energy system demands, especially if there's no timeouts. And if you're not familiar with the sport of basketball and how to train for it, it is difficult. But how did you handle it when there's only 6?
So that's tough to say. I came in, like, I didn't start, I came in a little bit into the first semester. So I wasn't there for most of that.
Gotcha.
But that was also Krista's first year. So she had just taken over the program, only had 6 girls. And then I believe at that point, a few of them are still multi-sport athletes. So some of them would have started off in volleyball and wouldn't have gotten the full basketball off season.
Oh,
So to
gotcha.
be,
Okay.
but yes, like from the practices I was in, I can't remember any time that Krista ran any type of extra conditioning at the end of practice or anything.
Because
Because
you
like
ain't
you
got
said,
to.
you're on the court yeah, you're already going to be beat by the end of that.
Cody
But
talked
yeah,
about
as for off
that
season, I can't
world
speak on that.
Cody talked about that world where if you keep winning, you go up, right? Like
Yeah.
after is that what you like talk about that difficulties from what you saw within it or just on that aspect?
Yeah, so I get to see the opposite side of that now in Florida. In Alabama, for anyone that's not familiar with how things work, it's called competitive balance. It only applies to private schools. In theory, it's meant to discourage recruiting because recruiting is very illegal in Alabama. Like switching schools in Alabama is hard unless you make a bona fide move into a school's district. You have to sit out a full calendar year, at least from varsity sports. You can switch over and play JV, but if you're an 11th grader, a senior, you can't switch over and be eligible until a full calendar year has passed for varsity sports, unless you made a bona fide move into their district. So the issue is that it actually encourages recruiting because when you're like, if you go to a state championship, I believe you automatically get bumped up in the next reseeding cycle. And so with that, so like Madison Academy specifically, enrollment size, they're about a 2A school. And so in Alabama, that means that they're graduating about 75 kids a year, but they compete. And it's also weird because your school is not, it's not like Madison Academy is going to compete as a 4A school. Every sport's completely different.
Oh,
So yeah. So like when I was there, girls and boys basketball. So basketball, it doesn't matter how good one program is and how bad the other. If one team gets bumped up, the other goes with it.
the other
And
gender.
yes,
Okay.
simply because with basketball, a lot of your scheduling is going to be like if our guys are playing X high school for traveling purposes, you want to have your girls playing that same high school the same night. So because of that, if you have one team that's really good, and so in their case, the coach before Krista, she had I want to say 6 D1 players on one roster.
Oh my
And
God.
so as you can imagine, I think they went to three straight state championships.
Yeah.
And so because of that, their basketball program was competing at a 6A level. So they're playing 6A basketball with 6 girls. Sucks. Whereas I want to say cross country was 1A, and then football was 4A, baseball was 5A, and then track was 4A. So it's not like competitive balance is super weird because it's not okay. Football did well, so everyone bumps up. It's every single sport's different. So trying to have like school rivalries is really hard because
Hmm.
you can have one school that's competing at the 2A or one sport competing at the 2A level, and in theory you could have another sport competing at the 7A level.
That,
So
yeah,
very weird.
not only with rivals, but with travel, because it
Yeah.
is like, how difficult is that to manage?
Yeah, it's also going to depend. So it was either a year or 2 years after I left, they bumped down to 3A in football because their enrollment went down. So that there's a lot of different factors that goes into it. Enrollment's the base one. If you're a private school, you automatically get a 1.33 times tax onto your enrollment. So if you got 100 kids, you're treated as a school with 133 kids. And so your enrollment can still move you up or down the ladder. And then your performance is also tacked on top of that. So once they went to 3A, there were a lot less 3A schools in the Madison Huntsville area. So their travel definitely got a little bit like longer bus rides and things like that to deal with. So yeah, super weird. Florida is the exact opposite. Florida, so we're a 1A school and like we're graduating 44, 45 seniors this year. That's not athletes, that's just total. It's a senior class of 45 kids. So we're 1A, but Chaminade Madama, nationally ranked football program, is also 1A. Like there is no competitive balance there. And so like they won the state championship with a running clock this year. Like there is no parity in 1A sports. Like it was ridiculous. So like the region we play in the first round of playoffs, the top 4 seeds outscored the bottom 4 seeds. I want to say it was like 130 to 26. And then those 4 teams went on. Both of the top 2 seeds proceeded to running clock the bottom 2 seeds. They went on between those 2 teams. One of them got running clocked. They went on, and it's just this continual ladder of like whoever you're better than. It's like an NFL team playing a high school team, but then you move up, and it's like you're playing like a Madden like Hall of Fame team for the state championship. It's absurd. So yeah, Florida and Bama are completely different. Also, transfer rules here: you can transfer anywhere in the state of Florida and be eligible 6 days later. So you'll see kids, they'll transfer mid-season, play for their
What?
crosstown rival 6 days later. Your team doesn't make the playoffs. Hey, that sucks, but you can go transfer and play for a school that does. Super weird. Horrible setup.
How does that, like, hearing that, like, that just make, like, how do you handle that as a coach, competitor, teacher of kids, of grit and determination? Wow.
Number one, you appreciate for the kids. or like you appreciate the time you have with kids because at any given moment they can up and transfer. Like we just had a pair of girls like just transferred to a school right across town and no one even knew. Just hey, they're at a different school now and they're eligible to compete in their sport starting this Friday.
Like me hearing that, like just as a parent, like how do you the things that you're doing to your kids when they have no stability of friends and just a life? Because like you said, okay, graduating class of 45, and you made a point to be like, not athletes, 45 in the class. And we all got to make sure you remember those are human beings before they're athletes. Get CEUs faster, cheaper, and more convenient than ever before with Strength Coach Network. Hey, it's Justin, here to tell you about how Strength Coach Network can now help you out with our premium membership and CEUs to the NSCA and CSCCa. Upon signing up for our premium membership, you will get 2.0 or 10 CEUs immediately. That is an entire year's worth of CEUs that you are able to access from the convenience of your office. No traveling for conferences, no waiting on flights, no eating out, no expensive hotels. Just the good stuff from great coaches. Now, if you need extra CEUs for past years during the reporting period, we can bundle Fundamentals 1 or 2, which also come with 2.0 or 10 CEUs to your purchase. That way, you're able to take care of your CEUs for the best price, most convenient, and learn from some of the best coaches. If you want more help with this, email us at service@Strength Coach Network or visit us at strengthcoachnetwork.com, and I would be delighted to help you out. Like,
Absolutely.
human beings need attachment. They need security. Like,
But yeah,
golly.
that's our quarterback that we finished with this year. He wasn't our quarterback to start the year. He was just in a quarterback battle at his high school. He lost the quarterback battle. He transferred to our school and proceeded to be in another quarterback battle, but he won this one. And but yeah, it's very much it's borderline like a pro league where it's almost like there's like trade deadlines. And
But is there a trade deadline? Because based on what you said,
no,
you could just, yeah, like
it's like
that's
if the NFL didn't have trade deadlines, and it's we just found out we didn't make the playoffs, so we're just gonna just scrap all these players, try to get
yeah,
roster assets, but in
yeah. So
return you
like
get nothing because it's high school.
right now, let's say Jamar Gibbs wanted to still play. You'd be
Yeah,
like, hey, listen, Commanders, you need somebody. Like, hey, I'll come transfer in.
yeah. And Washington
Dude,
gets nothing in return, or not Washington, but
the
Detroit
Lions.
gets nothing in return. It's just he's gone.
Is that going to change? Like, how does
I
how is
don't
that
know.
allowed?
The FHSA is very bad. Like I never once thought to question a state high school governing body until I got to Florida. But yes, it's horrible.
I want to like hearing you talk about the thing from Cody's school, Madison High. Like, dude, Madison Academy, the what it now is, because Cody and I did his podcast while the girls basketball team was training because of the person who
Yep.
replaced you because of the thing. So I just want to speak life into the fact that you did a fantastic job doing your job, and that has now made other people's lives better. And the reason I'm bringing it
Yeah.
up is A, shout out to you for doing that. But B, to our listeners out there, never think, oh, I'm just a lowly intern. I'm doing nothing. Like, you are literally proof that you can leave it better than you found it. And
100%.
now there are other people that are reaping the benefits for that.
Yeah. No, that was super cool to watch. Like obviously like I didn't directly benefit financially from that, but it is super cool seeing that a job that was in an unpaid position, I was the first one to get paid a stipend that second semester.
Yep.
Then from there it became like a slightly like not a sustainable pay like salary, but like you at least weren't unpaid. And then now it's a legit, this is what I do, this is my salary, and I can be here for 10 years and never hurt. So yeah, that was awesome to see.
Now, during your day, are you training athletes in the middle of the day? Is it before? Is it after? Because for all these coaches that we've had on, it's been all over the place.
So always during the day,
Nice.
sometimes before, sometimes after. So that's one of my unique constraints is just because of the way our school structure is, we can't require athletes to take my class. So I have 3 varsity classes that could have anywhere from 9th through 12th grade athletes. Then I also have 1 middle school class. So trying to expand, the middle school principal's all on board. She wants me training a lot more middle school kids next year. That's awesome. Looking forward to that. And then just trying to, I mean, the same way like Florida, you have to recruit your own high schools because, like I said, you like if you're not keeping kids happy, they're just going to up and move, and there's no barriers to entry to stop them. But the same thing, like not only are we recruiting kids to stay at our school, like throughout the year, I'm recruiting kids to take the class next year. But with that, so basically it's set up to that's going to take, because I want to say 73% of our kids are at least a dual sport athlete. A good chunk of our better athletes are three sport athletes.
Okay.
So the class is more or less meant to set up to take care of all of your in-season training demands. And then an off-season, if you're a football, a basketball, a baseball, whoever, that needs a little bit extra, especially if you're trying to put mass on, that's where we'd use before or after school training sessions to like just purely focus on the weight room.
Are you able to see them every single day? Because, gosh, I
Yes.
forget the guest. Oh, you are. So you get.
We're
like, 'cause,
7-period bell schedule, so I get them every day. We're not part of the main campus, so it's a little bit further walk. So between dress in, dress out, and the additional grace period, I get about 37 minutes total. So once the warm-up's over, I get about 32 minutes of training time, but I get it 5 days a week, except
So
Wednesdays.
that's
Wednesdays are weird.
That's also very much like what, at least what Brian Fitz had at Navy. He was like, dude, I got microdosing. He's like, if it ain't important,
Yeah.
it's gone.
And that's why I say that it's meant to mostly be like take care of your in-season training demands. Because if you're trying to get through like lifting, sprinting, jumping, agility, anything like that, if you're touching on all of it, then it's just hard. Like you're not going to tap out your training potential in 4 32-minute training sessions a week. And then Wednesday's our chapel day because we're a private Christian school.
Gotcha.
So between late start and chapel, classes are automatically cut down to 33 minutes. So in terms of training time, I have 20 minutes. So basically we just play games for conditioning, and then like we'll do like a king of the court format. And so it'll be groups of three, and whoever's off, I'll have them jumping on the jump mat or the vertex, so we're getting more jumps in on that day. But it's mostly just games for conditioning, a few extra jumps on the side.
Yeah. So I was just looking back at my notes, and it was, here we go. It was Tyler Franklin who was able to have 50 minutes. Yeah. 50 minutes, 5 days a week. It's, dude, that is fantastic. Like you can get a lot of good stuff done. And like you said, okay, hey, if we know that we're going to have that every single day, I can plan for that. And then if we want to top you off on, hey, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, or whatever it would be, Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, because you don't want to stay after school on Friday, cool. But man, like this is really helping these high school athletes out. Is the question that I'm trying to tee up, is are you able to use that as a good recruiting pitch to the kids? Hey, if you go somewhere else, you're not going to be able to have as good of a training regiment. So you want to stick and you want to stay with us because you will now be taken care of better physically.
That's something we try to talk to the kids about, but also we're Southwest Florida. It's a fairly affluent area of the country. So a lot of these kids, it's not very difficult to get an actual private trainer and just go to one of the local guys if they're not getting it at their school. Because we're currently the only high school within our county that has a certified strength coach running the program.
Huh.
But that's also another thing of it's very different. So it's not something kids expect. And it's not the type thing where, hey, 3 out of these 4 kids have a strength coach or a strength staff. If you go to that 4th school, then you're not getting what you're getting at any of these other places. And then that's viewed as a bad thing. Whereas us, we're the only one that has it. So people are just used to not having it.
Yeah. So they're like, oh, I don't care if I don't have it. It's not that big.
I didn't have it at my old school, and I did fine there.
And
I'll figure it out.
You're not even worth it. Who cares? I can just go. Oh gosh, man, I thought I was like able to help you out with something that you could be able to utilize.
Yeah. No, that is something that we're trying to do a better job of promoting. And especially like with the more development in middle school of just be able to advertise a long-term development program built into your school day.
Makes a lot of sense. One of the questions that I have for my colleague and I that we always talk about is, what is your class like? Do you have tiers of like advanced strength and conditioning base? You don't.
Not at all. Oh gosh. And how badly do I want it? But no.
You sound like Greg and I, because like we got pushback from the district. Him and the guy, Mike Gedemy, who's in charge of the department as a professor, have tried to have like tiers of it, and it's nope, you can't do it.
Yeah. And it's interesting because when Ross was here, is a huge battle because like it's not just like you're in my class and it's called weight training or athletics or whatever. It's weight training 1, 2, 3, or 4. So like for one class, when I'm taking roll, I have to go to my weight training 1, take a roll for everyone in that section. weight training 2, everyone for that section, so on and so forth. So it was a huge battle just to get it to the point where we could have multiple in one section, and we used band as the argument, because there's not like only 10th grade band, only 11th grade band, only 12th grade band, it's bands together. And so what that was for is, so we have a sophomore who he can already deadlift over 400 pounds, like he's super strong. There's no reason that he can't train with our juniors and seniors. But what that's become is we've gone from the goal of being able to group based on skill level rather than just grade level alone, to now it's just absolute chaos. And in one class, I've got a guy he's 6'3", he's 290 pounds. He's an absolute athletic freak. He's at one rack. And then on the other rack, I have our health structure is really weird. Like our ninth grade health, one semester you're in the classroom, one semester you train. And in sixth period only, those kids have the option to switch into my class. And so in my sixth period class, I've got that 290-pound kid. And then I've got this freshman who, if we're using school level examples, the 290-pound kid needs to be in like the athletic calculus class. Whereas one of the freshmen I just pulled in needs to be in like the athletic shapes, colors, and numbers class, because it's quite honestly just not safe for that kid to even be allowed in the weight room without like me with a hand on his shoulder guiding him the whole way. So yes, there is no filtering of skill level. It's just, if you're taking the class, take them.
How many racks do you have would be the next question that a strength coach would have. Okay, how are you able to logistically handle that?
We have 6 racks. Class size varies from 17 to 24. So looking at 3 to 4 kids per rack.
Yeah, like you said, if you have that kid that really needs some individual attention, like now you have to try to find, okay, 2 to 3 other kids that you can put with that
Correct.
person, so that way you can keep him safe and everybody has the proper training that they need.
Yes. And that's one thing that we're trying to help the scheduling side understand. Another thing is like the number of girls to guys you have, because it's a co-ed class.
And they don't want to be anywhere near each other.
Right. So
At
if you
least
run
Ryan,
into
yeah,
if you run into a group of 5 girls, it's hard to say, okay, we're going to have either 5 people at one rack in a workout where you're expected to be able to flow with 3 people at a rack, or now I have to go 3 girls at one rack, 2 at the other, and then now I'm going to have multiple extra groups of 4 or 5 guys grouped at other racks. So that's another just weird logistical constraint that most people wouldn't think about unless they actually do this.
No, and you're speaking to my soul with it, because like I'm literally picturing the girls from South Hamilton where it's like, no, we'll stay in our group of 6 instead of spread. It's, listen, you're actually strong. You're not that strong. Like, just go over there. It's not that big of a deal. And especially like you said, it gets magnified when you go to middle school, because yes, the middle school kids can train, and do you need to be 1RMing them and doing APRE? No, you can still train, and there are still strong middle school kids that need to be separated from those that are not. And yeah, if you're not doing it, man, oh my gosh. Yeah, the value in what you just said there is so real.
Yeah.
How do you go about your X's and O's then? Because hearing you talk about, okay, I have these limitations, then on Friday I implement games for conditioning. So I instantly heard that and my antenna perked up, like, this guy's smart. Like he gets it. Talk about what are your X's and O's, your big rock principle things on how you go about programming.
So our base template system, we were a tier system. I'd always been a tier system guy. But so like I said, our kids aren't required to take the class. So another kind of weird constraint of my job is like, normally you take over and like, regardless of whether you're a sport coach, strength coach, whatever, you treat your first year there as a year 0. You're just establishing like your culture, the way people are expected to do things, like as an athlete being coached by you, and then really establish that junior and sophomore class as your future leaders that can help be your unofficial assistant coaches. I don't get that, because our athletes aren't required to take the class, I currently train more kids that I didn't train last year than kids that I trained last year. And part of that's just because this current senior class is extremely small. Like I said, last year's senior class was a lot bigger. And so from a combination of losing a large senior class, replacing them with a small senior class.
What's up, everybody? Taking a quick break from the show to talk about one of our sponsors, TeamBuildr. I've been using TeamBuildr since 2019 when I was at Towson. I still use it with my remote athletes. I also use it at Goldfinch, which is the private sector gym I train at, and we use it at Centennial, which is the high school that I'm working at. Now, if you're printing on lift cards because you say, oh, I can't afford TeamBuildr, Guess what? TeamBuildr has a pre-written grant that you can locate on their website. You simply change the name of you, your organization, and the areas that they highlighted, and they can help you get TeamBuildr at your facility, your university, whatever it is, so that way you can optimize how you train your athletes with this software. Now, TeamBuildr is also a part owner in the Plyomat. The Plyomat is something that I utilize at Goldfinch, and it helps you be able to see how high somebody jumped, the ground contact time, and RSI. You can get all that conveniently right there. You can reach out to your rep from TeamBuildr to be able to get more information on the Plyomat. It's fast, it's reliable, it's convenient, and it's trusted by coaches worldwide. Check them out as well as TeamBuildr in the link down below.
And then taking in a lot of new kids that they liked what they heard about last year, but they weren't a part of it. Like, I think it works out to 56% of the kids I train, I didn't train last year. And so a lot of these new kids, they just did not like the tier system. They bucked it. They did not like the idea of just rotating from one to the other. Mostly it was my girls. And because of that, so like I said, it might be like a girl to guy ratio of 1-4, 1-5 in each class. And so those girls weren't super comfortable of, hey, I do a squat and then an altitude drop, and then I do a jump on the jump mat. They didn't want to like rotate from one to the next. They wanted to travel as a pack. So it's like, okay, I'm going to squat, and then I'm going to watch her squat, and then I'm going to watch her squat. And then we'll travel as a group to another part, and then we'll travel as a group. So whereas logistically you plan on, hey, I've got one person in the rack, I've got one person doing something outside of the rack, and I've got one person at the jump mat where I'm expecting 6 people at each station. All of a sudden now my 2 racks of girls are traveling as a pack, and whereas there should be 6 people there, now there's 11 people there. And it just created a bunch of weird bottlenecks. And so I switched over to a kind of Cal Dietz performance circuit style, just because, number one, now it allows me to let all of my racks travel as groups wherever they go, and they just stick and they just rotate through the performance circuit. And so that is very new. We're still testing it out. I like it a lot. Tuesday and Thursdays are our sprint, agility, jump type days. I like it a lot for those days because we have a basketball court attached right outside. I only have access to it on Tuesday, Thursday, but that's what I'll use for all my sprints. And so I can build into that performance circuit. So if front squats are main lower body movement that day, we can do a lot of like power and speed, like speed squats throughout the performance circuit. And then once we get to a certain point where it's starting to get heavy, I can cut the circuit and we'll just have 2 sets at APRE3, and then we're done. So that's been awesome. Our Monday and Friday where we're weight room only, those, they're still getting the hang of it, but it's the same format of like building all of my accessories around the warm-up sets for my main lifts. And then once we get to a certain point, I cut it, and then you go to the main lift only, and you have no supersets or anything with it, so you're a little bit more rested for those top sets.
That's really smart for anybody, our listeners that are not familiar with the tier system. Let's start there, and then let's talk about the performance circuit.
Yeah, so it wasn't like a full like total upper lower. It was more
Okay.
so just the functionality of, and it usually did work out to be total upper lower, but just based off, I might separate it more to like a total and then like upper main, upper accessory. And then on the Tuesday, it might be more of like a total and then focusing more of our lower work after that. Just it ends up being like every day's total body, just because there might be like an Olympic lift or something like that mixed in, but there's going to be like upper focuses and lower focuses.
That makes sense because the question that I wanted to focus in on there was like, all right, the tier system might say, hey, we're going to put upper body first, then lower body, then total body. But my question to you is going to be like, did you go full hook, line, and sinker? Hey, we're going to bench, we're going to squat, and then we're going to clean. And because my question then was going to be, what did you find from that? Because to me, it just demands on nervous system and the difficulty of the movement. Like I had never done that.
Yeah.
Had heard of it, but I wanted to hear from a coach that had done it before.
Yeah, so like when we were on tier system, like tier A, like A1 might be like a split jerk or a power snatch. A2 might be an altitude drop or depth drop, whichever term you prefer to use. And then A3 might be like a seated broad jump or a counter movement jump or depth jump or something like that. And then once you got into, if you have your upper as your tier, B1 might be a bench press, B2 might be like a chest supported row, and then tier C might be like a squat paired with some other type of like assistant work.
How did you find that athletes responded to that, where they went total up or lower? Did you notice that they were overly fatigued? Did it not matter based off of the training age because they weren't super mature and it didn't matter and you could do that and it did vary the stimulus?
Yeah, results wise, like I had no issues with our results. Like I was proud of the progress we had made. The
Yeah.
only thing is like since we sprint on Tuesdays and Thursdays, I would just try to be cognizant of what lower movements I was programming on that Monday.
Yeah.
So that might be like I would try to avoid like a heavy squat on a Monday. I might try to move that to Friday. But if it was like a box squat, I noticed our kids didn't have any issues sprinting the day after a box squat or a deadlift, but they did have issues if they went over just like a heavy like free squat or like heavy reverse lunge or something like that. So it was more so just like paying attention to like number one, like how are our sprints looking the day after I do something? And if I don't like the way they look, then just switch where my lower body stimuli are going to be to meet that.
Let's talk about that performance circuit because I'm curious as to exactly what it was that you're referring
Mhm.
to. I had worked with somebody at Towson that had worked for Cal, and so I don't know if it was like the same GPP circuit that you're talking about, but let's talk about that for a little bit.
So from what I understand about the Caldeets performance circuits, it's a cycle of movements meant to be logistically friendly, like I'm talking about. And ideally, you're setting the patterns up so that even though you might have something like a squat mixed in, it's not interfering with the sprint. And so Cal gets way more in depth into it than I do. But pretty much like he's seen the same things I have, where if you try to sprint after squatting, it kind of messes with the movement pattern. And instead of getting that delayed knee extension where it's a hip driven movement, the kids become more quad dominant sprinters. And so what he found was if I just put a posterior chain movement after the squat, so it could be something as simple as like a prime time run, like anything that's going to be cross call pattern that emphasizes the posterior chain, that it's almost just like hitting the reset button, getting back to your normal sprint mechanics so that you could go into a sprint after that and be perfectly fine. So basically, that's what I'm looking for. So, like yesterday, you would have a front squat, like a speed squat. Then you would have, I call them banded prime times, but it's for anyone listening, if you know the prime time movement where it's a straighter leg snapping behind the hip, we're just attaching a band to that foot. And so it's basically just a resisted version of that where you're doing a resisted foot snapping down behind the hip. And so we'd pair those together and then they'd go outside. We did a timed curve run. So basically, they're sprinting around the 3 point line with lasers on there. And then from there, we went into a sled sprint and then a plyo medley.
Plyo medley of throws.
No, just various types of jumps. That's one
Holy.
thing I'll vary that a decent amount. So some week might emphasize more like lateral hops into broad jumps and things of that nature. This week I stole it from Jeremy Frisch. It's giant hopscotch. And so how you set it up is up to you, but like I'll set hula hoops on the ground. And so if it's just one hula hoop, that's indicating you're doing like a single leg bound. Whereas if it's a double leg hula hoop, like two beside each other, you're landing in that, you're jumping out with a broad jump.
That's super interesting setup. And how many times would somebody be going through that performance circuit?
So you'd go through that 3 times. So like after the warm up, you get through the full circuit 3 times. Your front squat is going to get incrementally heavier each time. So you're going to have ascending loads, starting off like purely like speed work on the front squat. And then as it gets heavier, getting into that more like peak power type range. And then we'll cut the circuit and then we'd go into just finishing off like an APR3 loaded front squat. And so you'd have about 10 minutes just to get in those two heavy sets of your front squats at APRE3.
And you're not pairing anything else with those
Nope,
squats
just
at the
pure
end.
rest in between.
And because the reason I'm asking all those questions is like, all right, with this performance circuit, based on your time limitations, that sounds like a very fantastic way to get the things that you need. And then, okay, hey, we're done doing all the sprinting and all those other things. If you do it 3, maybe 4 times, and now we're doing the really heavy front squat stuff. The question that I had is, okay, hey, if we're now, I know we want to limit fatigue, but is there ways that we could do things to prepare for or do you just not have any more time to train after that A block? What's up, everybody? Taking a quick break from the show to talk about one of our sponsors, Hawken Dynamic. I've been using Hawken Dynamics ever since I was at Towson. Still utilize it today when I'm at the private sector at Goldfinch. Even brought the plates from Goldfinch over to Centennial to do some force plate testing with the football team there. We've done force plate testing with other high school athletes. It is something that you need to get. If you want more help with it about how to practically use it and you want to reach out to us, feel free to reach out to us at service@strengthcoachnetwork.com. Not only do I utilize it with lower body assessments, I use it with upper body assessments, plyo push-ups, prone Y assessments. You can also utilize it for what I call an upper body isometric mid thigh pull, where essentially you're doing a push up at the strongest range and you're pushing into an immovable force, so a barbell, same way you do an isometric mid thigh pull. Like I said, been using them for years. Valid, reliable. The customer service is fantastic. Go check out Hawken Dynamic in the link down below, and you will not be disappointed. Okay, all right. Now we're doing our heavy squats. Hey, let's start doing one or two easy things that are just prepping us for whatever that C block or B block, if you want to say, is. Because let's say, okay, it is an upper body movement. What could we be doing to prep our shoulders, prep our pecs, scaps for that subsequent series?
Yeah, that's when like what we before we went for the performance circuit, then like, if you wanted to call it a tier, like your A1 would be whatever type of sprint you're doing. A2 might be like a med ball throw. A3 might be like a broad jump or a triple broad jump or something, and then you're back to the sprint. And then we'd try go in the weight room, and then like B1 might be like a power snatch variation to keep with the theme of the day. And then C tier might just be some accessory work that we didn't have time for on the other days. That's what I tried to stick to for the longest, but our athletes, for whatever reason, from switching from the sprint work on the basketball court into the weight room, they just like everybody just wanted to sit down, talk to their friends, and take a break. And it just, when you're working with 32 minutes, you just don't have time to just hang out instead of setting up, especially if it's like something like a split jerk where we're going to set the pins higher in case they need to dump the bar. So it just wasn't efficient. And so eventually I'm like, okay, cool. We're going to do our three like sprint, jump, throw movements outside, and then we'll just go in the weight room and we'll do one tier. And it would just, and like even then, like we just weren't getting enough done with that one tier. So I was like, cool, we're just going to performance circuit the whole thing. We'll build the weight room stuff, like the warm up sets for the weight room, into our circuit. And then we'll just, whatever main movement is, we'll do it heavy for 2 or 3 sets at the end. And there's only 10 minutes left. You're already primed and ready. You don't need warm up sets. You're just ready to go.
That's what I'm saying. I love it. Like hearing you, I'm like, this is a very efficient way to train and get the thing done that you want to do, dear. And you can get as creative as you want with, like you said, okay, it could be a med ball, it could be a throw, it could be a jump, hop, leap, whatever you want to do with it. The broad jump can be resisted. It could be a vertical jump. You can do, like you said, a deadlift, a squat, an RFE, whatever movement you want to do, your banded prime time. And then towards the end of it, yeah, okay, hey, you're warm, go smash these last heavier sets. And then, like you said, shoot, you could even be like, hey, you got 5 minutes here because, all right, we're going to do set 1. You're going to rest like 3 minutes, go do the other set. Hey, now if you wanted to get some volume, be like, hey, take 20% off, go get as many reps as possible. Like that right there is a golden nugget that I think a lot of coaches are going to be utilizing.
Yeah. And that's, if you're listening to this and you're either in high school and you're new to it, or you're thinking about getting into high school, everything's just about fitting the logistical constraints of where you work and then the skill level of your kids and what they can execute and execute well. It's really it. So what I do here, like it's not the same thing I did last year that worked well, just because like I said, that senior class was just fantastic. They loved to train. They were very disciplined kids that like to do what they're supposed to do. This new group is very green. A lot of them just haven't trained much, if at all. And so I've got to do things different here. I've got to do things different here than I did at Priceville. And I did things different at Priceville than we did at Madison Academy. And that's all just based off logistics and skill level of the kids and what they can execute.
I couldn't, like, anybody that's actually watching the show, they just watched me throw my arms in the air because of just pure excitement. And because I've seen it too many times where it's, oh, hey, I'm this person and I'm going to do exactly what they did. And it's, if you don't have the logistical room for it, or if your athletes aren't able to do it, you can't run that program. And now those athletes are getting a disservice. There is volumes in what you just said right there.
Yep. And that's like a very basic example of that is like whether you like the Olympic lifts or not, At Priceville, we not knew a single one because the way the racks were is if you're watching, you have a visual. There were racks attached to the wall, and then in the middle of the weight room, there were double halves where half of them faced the wall, where there was other racks, half of them didn't. And so with that, the training lane was tiny. If we were doing something out in the floor, there was not a lane for me to walk to one side of the weight room to the other on. Like I would literally have to, if there was an emergency, I would have to be like jumping over benches and barbells to get to the other side of the room. So with that, like if a kid failed an Olympic movement outside the rack, that bar is probably going to go flying into someone, especially if it bounces off like a plate or something that was on the ground. It's going to roll into another kid. And especially if they're doing something like a snatch, a clean, or whatever, that could legitimately injure that kid. So it just wasn't safe to do them there. And also there were groups where I had where it was, and like I would have sport coaches in there that could help.
Taking a quick break from the show to talk to you about one of our sponsors, Powerlift. I used Powerlift when I was at Harvard, Maryland, and the University of Iowa. I was also part of the staff that had the new weight room at the University of Iowa, the 32 rack, beautiful facility. I was a part of that. I also have Powerlift's equipment nowadays. Powerlift Strong, made here in the great state of Iowa in the great country of the United States. They're able to work with you on any customizations that you need, logos, height, whatever it is, the limitations that you have. Their equipment is strong. The people there, they're very good people. Check them out in the link down below. And if you have any questions on how to work with them, reach out to us at service@strengthcoachnetwork.com and we would be delighted to help.
But more often than not, they just preferred to stand in the corner and talk to their coaching friends. So there were times where it was like me and 63 kids in one weight room. And the way that weight room designed, where there was a secondary room that had a half wall built that had 4 more racks in it. So there was only one spot in the entire weight room where I could see all 18 racks. And even at that one spot, there were 2 racks, one in that room, one at the far corner of the wall, where just the way the racks were laid out, the post actually blocked me for seeing the person who was lifting inside the rack. So there was no spots in the entire weight room where I could have eyes on all 18 racks training at one time. So we had to execute the simplest skill level lifts possible just because it wasn't safe to do otherwise.
Speaking of skill level, one of the coaches that we had on, we talked about how difficult it can be to teach an RDL to a middle school athlete that has never done it before. And if you're working in the pros and you've never done it, like it is not as easy as a lot of people might think it is.
I wish I had a broomstick or something in here and I'd demo the movement. I actually like just on the fly this summer. I found a new way to teach it, works super well. I may be able to get far enough out of camera angle to where I can at least somewhat demo it. So you would take a PVC pipe. One hand's going to be above your head. One's going to be below your hips right here.
Yeah.
And so it's just a basic PVC pipe RDL where we're feeling back of head, between the scaps, low back.
Yeah.
And so they would perform the hinge with that. And then I would have their calves, the back of their calves touching a bench. And so what happened there is like a lot of the kids, when they're learning the hinge, number one thing you're going to see is unable to keep a straight spine. And so the PVC pipe gives you instant feedback. If I can also focus on like I can really push. If I struggle to keep my head on in a straight line, I can really push the bar into my head. If I struggle to keep that lumbar spine straight, I can really push that bar into my hips. And then so number one, that's a tactile cue of if it gets to the point where it's, hey, if you can't feel the PVC pipe in any of those straight spots, pause, push that spot back into the PVC pipe, and then finish the movement. And then with the tactile feedback of the bench, so a lot of kids when they're doing it, you'll see those knees jet back like they're doing a stiff leg deadlift.
Yep.
And then other kids you'll see where the knees will start going over the toes and they're actually just performing a squat.
Yep.
So now if I can't feel the knee or my calves touching the bench, that tells me I'm getting squatty. If I try to jettison those knees back, it's actually going to pop the bench back. And it's kind of like, whoa, like really locks you back in of, hey, knee shot back. So it's just really 4 points of contact that are giving kids instant feedback on if they're doing the movement right or not. And that's what I started doing in my middle school class is we took like a full week just to really coach that movement. And like we might do it for tempo, like one person at a time. And then from that point on, that just became like anytime we're in the weight room, every single one of them knows I've got to go grab my PVC pipe. I roll my bench out and I'm going to bang out 20 of those reps, nice and controlled, trying to really push range of motion. And so I don't even have to coach that anymore. They just come in and they know that they're supposed to do it. So they're practicing that hinge every single time we're in the weight room.
You going to change up what hands on top?
I couldn't care less, to be honest. Yeah.
No, I'm asking because again, I feel like some of our coaches out there might be like, wait a minute, it's not going to be symmetrical if you don't do both. If you have 4 sets and it's not 2 and 2
You
and the
are
hand on.
you are more than welcome to switch hands as you see fit.
I couldn't agree more with you on that one. Let's talk about the assistant AD stuff. What does that look like for you, and how do you navigate that? And how would you recommend to our coaches that are in a similar situation to do a good job of that?
So thankfully, I work for a great AD and a great assistant head of school who both have coaching backgrounds.
What
The
does
assistant
assistant
head,
head of school mean for any of our, like me and anybody else? It's wait a minute, what is that?
so think you have your principal and you have your assistant principal.
Yeah,
So in the same way, like we're a private school, we have a head of school she's at the
gotcha,
top. He's the assistant head of school.
gotcha. Okay,
And so he still holds his CSCS. So he values training, he values my position. So that's awesome. And they both understand that my main job, like I didn't come here to be assistant AD. It was just a part of the job that they really needed to justify the pay and having the position.
gotcha.
So my main thing that I take care of is just game coverage. So we'll rotate like me, like a head AD, and then our football and baseball coaches will just rotate through game coverage. So basically, you're going through, you're making sure everything's set up. If we got a soccer game, I got to go out before the game starts and make sure the scoreboard's on, make sure the visiting team's changed to whatever mascot that team is, that type stuff. Then during it, crowd control, making sure nobody's getting out of hand, making lewd comments, anything like that. Afterwards, making sure all the trash is cleaned up and everything's set up and ready to go for the next day. And then also, if the concession stand runs out of ice or they need more like $1 bills or anything like that, go grab that type stuff. The team football, the first 2 games, we had one kid forget to put his girdle on, so I got to golf cart a kid back so that he can put his girdle on real quick. Another one, like kids forgot their knee pads, so I had to run back and get knee pads for the kids, that type thing. So that's my main job. Another one, and like I think most strength coaches can relate to this, is just taking pride on how the weight room looks, making sure it's set up a certain way. Things just aren't laid out looking like crap. And so both my AD and assistant head of school, they both agreed that's something you've taken a lot of pride in. You've done a really good job setting up the weight room to look nice, be presentable, and have a nice flow to it. So last year, I was in charge of making sure that we had officials for all of our games. And so we just had a website where you could see like all of your upcoming home games and you could see whether or not officials were pending, had already been assigned, or if you needed to reach out and get officials in like already going. I hate working on computers. It's not my thing. And so they said, we're going to let you be over, I guess you could call it facilities management. And so basically it's just making sure that all of our athletic facilities look the way they should look. There's no safety concerns or anything of that nature. And just anything that needs to be fixed out there, I'm going to relay that messages to the proper chains and make sure it gets fixed. And
Yeah,
then
it
on
just
top of that,
sounds like you're being a parent there.
yeah, more or less, just making sure things look nice, they look presentable. Our facilities are a recruiting tool. In my opinion, our baseball facility is the nicest looking one in our area. So just taking advantage of those things and making sure that when people come here, it's recruit ready. And that even if you're just here for as a parent of a visiting team, you're like, wow, this place looks really nice. I like the way this looks. I think I'd like my kid to go here. And then also just being a sounding board for my AD. So he can vent his initial thoughts to me before he goes to a coach or anything like that.
What do you recommend for, maybe there are people that are doing something similar, or at the very least being the sounding board? How do you do the sounding board job well, and how do you recommend other people do it?
Number one, just let them talk. Like they may not even need input. They may need to just get their thoughts out of their head, see how it sounds, and see if is this something I'm comfortable with presenting to someone else, or am I just being emotional and just needed to let something out? From there, if there's be patient, don't always have something to say, don't always have a suggestion to make. Be tactful. If it's like a good time to segue into something that's important to you, take advantage of it. But don't be the needy coach that's just every single opportunity they're complaining about something, they're asking for something, they need something changed. At that point, when you do make a big request, they're so tired of you just constantly yapping and nagging that they're probably not going to be very receptive. Whereas if you're very tactful and wait for opportune moments to arise, you've got a better chance of successfully getting what you're looking for.
How is it working with all the different sport coaches and the different personalities that you manage, work with on the day to day?
Yeah, I mean, that one's always interesting because with high school, you're going to have your on-campus coaches that are also employed by the school. And then you're going to have your off-campus coaches where they might be an accountant, they might be whatever else during the school or the workday, but then they're a coach for you once school ends.
What's up, y'all? Taking a quick break from the show to talk to you about another one of our sponsors, Vitruve. I've been utilizing Vitruve for a while now, and I absolutely love the convenience of this app. The encoder is at a price that you cannot beat compared to the competitors. Also, I don't personally like the camera apps. I've known that they continue to break down, and I really enjoy having this encoder attached directly to the bar. Vitruve does that. Not only does it do that, but it'll show me velocity loss during the set, shows me average velocity, all of it right within the app. Not only that, for the app on the individual athlete, there's a Vitruve Teams app where now, as the coach, I can see all the results from my athletes. I can API that into my TeamBuildr, and now everything that I'm trying to do, get better competition, better intent in the weight room, I am able to do with Vitruve. If you want more information about them, click the link down below, or you can ask us questions directly at service@strengthcoachnetwork.com, and we would love to answer those questions for you.
And so if they're an off-campus coach, you've got to be very intentional about if you see them, you need to go over and say hello and take time to show face because you're not going to see them throughout your workday. Whereas your on-campus coaches, those are the ones where you have a lot more opportunities to build relationships with them that go beyond just coaching. So and then obviously, like everyone knows, if you're at a high school setting, your cross-country coach and your football coach probably don't want the exact same things. So number one, understanding how to talk to those coaches and understanding their goals for their team and what they want for their athletes. That's very important. You can't just provide like a unified message to every single coach, no matter what sport they're in charge of.
How do you give them the best individualized training while respecting the constraints of, like you said, the room, your class schedule, the logistical things?
A lot of that, so like I said, our in class is meant to just be athletic development. It's between our time constraints and me being by myself, it's just I don't think it wise to try to execute a multi-level programming approach. Like it is meant to be general athletic development. It's going to make you a better athlete. That's the main goal. And then whatever individuality we're looking for, we can address those with those before and after school workouts. So number one, like it's going to be your entire team in there together instead of spread across multiple grade levels, multiple sports, maybe some non-sport athletes in there like in class. It is your team. They're wearing your sports gear. Their head coach is present, and we can really just attack whatever that coach's goal is for the given off season.
How do you handle that if there's a team that multiple teams want the same day, same time? Because I know some coaches have had that where the time constraint, there is a time constraint and a bottleneck constraint in the weight room.
So part of that, I always give precedence to teams that have more of their kids in the class, simply because, so if my football team and my baseball team and my basketball team all have 95% of their kids in the class, like I said, but like when you're adding in sprints, jumps, all things like that, it's not just 2 hours and 8 minutes of pure lifting a week. It's 2 hours and 4 minutes of addressing all skills. And it would honestly be negligent of me to not give football extra lifting work outside of that, because it is a sport where you need mass, you need momentum, you need to be able to bring more to the equation. So if that team's already doing everything right and having kids in the class, and I am very fundamentally aware that they need extra time to lift to improve strength and hypertrophy outside of that, and then a team comes to me that has 0 kids in the class or 1 kid in the class, and they're like, hey, we want 3 days of team lifts a week so that these kids can still get what they need. Unfortunately, as a head coach, you didn't do your job and get the kids in the class. I'm more than happy to help you as much as I can, but this team already did. They partnered with me. They did everything that I asked them to do. And so as part of that partnership, I am obligated to help them get everything that they need out of the deal. Whereas you guys, I still love you. I still care about you. I still love your kids, but you didn't uphold your end of the partnership. So I'll help you where I can, but I may not be able to give you everything that you're asking for.
Well, and not to mention the fact that just, hey, divert them back to, hey, the things that you want, they can get it if they're showing up to this
Correct.
class in the middle of the day.
And that's also, if you look at it, like from our class, like a cross country kid has already gotten every bit of training that they need. They
Correct.
don't need an additional weight room time if they're taking the class. And honestly, like they're getting as much as they'd ever need, if not more. And same thing, like we take something that's like a very skilled or just different sport. Like a swim's probably not going to need extra time with me in the weight room if
No,
they're already taking the class.
no. That
They
coach, that
probably just
swim
need
coach
more
is gonna
time
be
in the
like, "We're
pool.
good. I don't need anything else."
Whereas like a football team, like they need more time to put on more mass. Baseball, like a rotational sport, they might have some unique demands that we need to address in at least one extra training session a week in the off season. More if a baseball coach really values putting mass on his kids. But like it's if you're in the class, every sport isn't going to need extra work. So that frees up our schedule to give it to the ones that do. And that's the message, that's the main message I keep sending to coaches is I can give you everything you want if you put your kids in the class. If you don't, I'm probably never going to be able to satisfy you.
Good for you for being able to have that setup and those boundaries, because that not only protects you, but it helps the athletes and everything. So that's awesome to see. Where do you see the field of strength and conditioning going in the next 5 years from 2025 to 2030?
There's going to be a lot of new high school jobs opening. That's part of it's just jealousy. Anytime you see your crosstown rival get something that's new, you're going to want it too. I would be wary of taking a lot of those jobs. If you're going to be someone's first time strength coach, you need to spend a lot of time getting to know those admin and those sport coaches before you accept that position. Because anytime it's new, they have no idea how to function with a strength coach on their staff. And so you could be taking over for sports where whatever random coach on the team that on the staff has dictated it. Whereas other sports, they may have never been in the weight room before, but now the AD is saying, we're paying this coach, your kids are going to train. And so now they have to have their kids in there, even if they don't really want to. So get to know the school before you accept those positions. Obviously, if you're a young coach that just needs a job, not you got to do what you got to do. But if you have the luxury of staying at a school you're currently at, or if you're moving and you can be a little bit more choosy, make sure you get to know all the administration and the sport coaches before you accept that position.
That's fantastic advice. What shoot, you should do the same exact thing whenever you get a new job. That was something that Coach Doyle told us when he was mentoring us at Iowa. He was like, "Listen, when I first got to Wisconsin, I didn't meet with the coaches as long as I should have." He's like, "When y'all take a job, meet with the
Yeah,
coaches, meet with the admin, and learn all that stuff." Because at the end of the day, we work with people. We don't work with barbells, dumbbells, force plates, any of that stuff. We work with
right.
people, and you have to understand that.
Yep.
What is something, in your opinion, that is harming the profession of strength and conditioning?
I don't know. It's hard to make unified statements across the board. Probably the biggest thing is just we touched on it throughout the class. Look at the people that are in front of you and just do what's best for them. You don't necessarily have to be obligated to whatever camp your allegiance is to. Like if you're just a tried and true, like I'll use tier system just because we've talked about it. If you're a tier system homer and the tier system just doesn't fit the group that you're training, it's okay to change and you don't have to have your identity paired up to any given method, whether it be a lift or a training style. Just coach the people that are in front of you.
What's something that is awesome that if you're like, "Hey, I want to double down on this," or strength coaches, we need to double down on this, what would it be?
Again, it's just what do your people need? And so part of that's going to be standards, part of that's going to be accountability. And then I think a lot of the things the field's just naturally shifting itself to. Tony Holler really got sprint training popularized starting around 10 years ago. So it's now getting normal for kids to get speed training throughout high school. Whereas when I was in high school and people like us, we probably never did more than like a 40 test in the summer.
Yep.
That was the only speed training you got. Now we're starting to see Tony Villani's game speed type stuff start to creep over and all those type things. And it's just more and more like address the athlete, help the kids be a better athlete. But then on the flip side of that is I fear with that, though a lot of people are going so deep in that they can't do those basic functions of a strength coach. Like I had a kid, he's not an athlete, he just likes to train. And he asked me like, "Hey coach, how can I do lateral raises without getting heavily reliant on my trap? How can I really isolate that lateral delt?" and you've still got to be able to answer those meathead questions. Like at the end, like its performance is awesome, but at the end of the day, if you can't answer basic barbell questions, you're probably not going to make a lot of people happy as a strength coach. And if you're really wanting to get involved in all that performance improvement type stuff, it's a lot easier to sell it when your team is still strong.
That's the easiest way to get buy-in, is give them the results that they want. Get them strong.
Yeah.
Coach, I want to respect your time. The two of us, we could have sat here and talked all day, but you have other things to do. And so thank you for coming on and sharing with me and for our listeners out there.
Yeah. I appreciate you having me, man. It's a good time.
Have a great rest of your day.
Same to you.
Thanks for watching that video. If you enjoyed it, click right here for videos just like that, and make sure you click here to subscribe to our channel. Have a great rest of your day.